there are a couple of people who are sort of on the short list for President Trump. One, of course, is Amy Coney Barrett. Apparently, he met with her yesterday, according to Fox News. Fox News says that he met with her yesterday at the White House. On Monday, Trump said he had narrowed his choices down to 5 potential nominees. While speaking to reporters, he specifically addressed potentially nominating Barbara Lago, a Cuban-American who serves on the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. He said, she's highly thought of. There's a lot of talk about the fact that she is a Latino woman of, I believe, Cuban extraction from Florida. She's been a favor of Governor Ron DeSantis over there, who appointed her to the state high court before she was put on the federal high court. She was considered for higher courts before. Here, Barbara Lago's record seems to be pretty good. So the information that I have about Barbara Lago seems to be pretty solid, which is that she's ruled on some contentious cases. She was confirmed overwhelmingly by the Senate, by the way, 80-15, including many, many top Democrats. The ABA gave Lago a unanimous rating of well-qualified prior to the 11th Circuit confirmation. She was involved in an 11th Circuit 6-4 decision upholding a Florida law requiring ex-felons to pay outstanding fines, fees, and other costs before being permitted to vote. Because she said, okay, you actually have to fulfill all of your obligations, including fines and fees, before you vote. Democrats, of course, accused her of attempting to shut down the right to vote. She's also spoken at length about originalism during her confirmation hearings. She spoke about the value of originalism. For folks who don't follow constitutional law, originalism is the very simple concept that the text of a statute should be read as it was written when it was written. In other words, you shouldn't write a statute in 1890 and then interpret it using the verbiage of 2020. You might say that you shouldn't write a statute about women and men in the Civil Rights Act of 1965 and then interpret it as though women and men meant transgenderism in 2020. So this would be Barbara Lago cracking back against the idea that you should interpret a statute in any way other than the original meaning of the statute. Here was Barbara Lago testifying during her 11th Circuit nomination hearing.
If we are not bound by what the Constitution means, and it is ever changing, then we're no different than the country that my parents fled from, which is Cuba. Because Cuba has a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, and it means nothing because there is no one to hold it and to say this is what the definition of this Constitution means if it is always ever changing. The principles that were articulated in the Constitution at the time of ratification have a meaning. That meaning is constant. What changes is the application of the meaning to new things like new technologies, like in the Fourth Amendment context, for example.
Okay, so that is an excellent articulation of the principles of originalism. The other possible nominee is, of course, Amy Coney Barrett. She was talked about to fill it ended up being Justice Kavanaugh's seat. I was a big proponent of Amy Coney Barrett. I suggested that she be nominated instead of Justice Kavanaugh, who I still have my doubts about in terms of his jurisprudence. We'll see where we end up. Coney Barrett does not have a huge and long history on the court. She was nominated to the 7th Circuit just a few years ago. Both of these women, by the way, are quite young. Barbara Lago is in her early 50s. Amy Coney Barrett is 48. She's a pro-life Roman Catholic on a personal level. She clerked for Antonin Scalia after she graduated from law school. She's kind of her most famous articulation of her philosophy is in an article for the Notre Dame Law Review she taught at University of Notre Dame called Originalism and Stare Decisis about Justice Scalia. And there she was trying to negotiate the sort of difference between originalism, where you look at the text of the Constitution, and bad decisions. How often do you simply acquiesce to bad decisions that have been made over the course of American history because they're so deeply embedded in the fabric of American law? So, for example, there are a lot of legal questions, not moral questions, legal questions to be asked about Brown versus Board. It's long been an area of serious contention among legal scholars. So Justice Scalia said that's so embedded in the fabric of American life that you cannot remove it. It constitutes what Amy Coney Barrett said was super precedent, meaning it's precedent so deeply embedded that you can't get rid of it. She explicitly, in this Notre Dame Law Review article, excludes Roe versus Wade as super precedent. She says it is not super precedent because it has been a topic of conversation and controversy ever since Roe versus Wade was decided in 1973. So she obviously is made in this sort of Scalia mold. I'm looking over the records of both of them today. Hopefully I'll have some more details for you tomorrow. On first glance, both Coney Barrett and Barbara Lago look like very solid originalist/textualist picks for the court. And then the question becomes the politics of the situation. Lago theoretically could win some more Cuban-American votes in Florida for President Trump. If she were nominated, Coney Barrett is a white Catholic. Theoretically, if she were to be attacked by Democrats who get over their skis in the same way they went after Justice Kavanaugh, then you could win some additional votes in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Political considerations will be first and foremost. Listen, if I were just going to pick a justice based on who I thought would be a good justice, I just pick Ted Cruz because I know exactly what Cruz's constitutional philosophy is. He's pretty consistent with it, and he would actually make a pretty good justice. He's iconoclastic and he's a good writer. But if you're picking between these two ladies, from what I have seen, both of them look pretty good at this point. Those are the people who are at the top of the list, Barbara Lago and Amy Coney Barrett. And I'm looking forward to this week speaking with proponents for each, presumably before President Trump makes a pick. Thanks for watching, but before you go, you have to know we are moving YouTube channels. Videos like this one will only be available on my personal YouTube channel, Ben Shapiro, starting September 28th. Click on the link in the description to subscribe so you don't miss a beat.